Good afternoon. I am Paula Fontana, Interim President with the National Black MBA Association. Thank you so much for joining us for New Year, New Goals, Same Coworkers. So, the mission of the National Black MBA Association is to lead in the creation of educational, wealth building, and growth opportunities for Blacks throughout all stages of their careers as students, professionals, and entrepreneurs. And today's program is an example of an opportunity that we provide for our members year round to grow their mindsets. So, again, welcome. So, as many of you know, at the top of every year, it is customary for people to set new goals. Hashtag New Year, New Me. So, all of this desired change, though, happens in the midst of our current relationships. We're all professionals here, so let's just have a really deep dive dialogue on how we can accomplish our new goals that we've set for ourselves in this new year with our same coworkers. Joining me for the discussion is Lori Scott, licensed marriage and family therapist, and for the purpose of today, she's also a certified transformational relationship coach who, I quote, begun this work to help people be free on their jobs. Lori's mantra is every relationship starts with you. Lori, welcome.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine, hon. How are you?
Great. So, what we are going to do is we're going to allow our listeners to listen in to a conversation between girlfriends. How does that sound?
Sounds lovely.
Wonderful. So, let's jump right into our very first question. So, I know I've heard many times that people don't leave bad bosses, bad jobs, they leave bad bosses, right? So, first question up, how do you deal with a difficult boss who is micromanaging?
Well, it's first we need to decide what that is, like recognizing that micromanaging is control, right? So let's just put it out there. We have someone who one is not sure, right? Their boss is probably not sure about themselves because it always starts with us. And so, if the boss is unsure, then they're going to imagine that the coworker or the person that they're working over is unsure too. So
Hmm.
they're going to try to manage every step of the process. And to deal with that is to recognize it first and foremost. To know, hey, this is not about me. It's about this person who is anxious or unsure or insecure in some way. And so instead of allowing ourselves to get bothered by that, we can one, say it, say how we feel. I feel like I'm being micromanaged.
Hold on. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm not about to say that. Okay. Because I said that the person is being micromanaged. I didn't say they felt micromanaged. So why did you say feel versus are?
Well, because you have to feel it first. You have to feel what's happening in that space, right? And if the boss is being micromanaging, right, it's up to us to allow that to then penetrate over to us.
Hmm.
And if we can step outside and just notice this person is probably a little anxious, they're a little probably controlling, you can decide, hey, I see that happening. You don't even have to say it initially, but just recognize what I call it, notice what you're noticing. Notice what's happening without so much reacting to it. And if you can notice that, then you can decide, do I want to feel micromanaged? Right? Because you don't have to be micromanaged just because you have a micromanaging boss.
Oh, wow. Um, Early on, I feel like that's a mic drop moment. Tell me, decide. Like, what do you mean we can decide? Because I feel like that's um, taking power back from something, if somebody, if you're feeling controlled,
Mhm.
um, if you have the power to decide, again, that kind of feels like that I'm taking some more ownership back of something that I didn't feel I had in my control.
Right. And it's to recognize when somebody's trying to micromanage, if you see that happening, they're spiraling out. They're out of control. And again, that's an invitation for you to do the same thing. So you have to decide, do I want to to get into this space of feeling micromanaged? Or do I want to like stand over the situation, and really take my power back?
Hmm. Whew. So you make that decision. What does that look like, right? Taking the power back. If I decide I don't want to feel micromanaged.
Right. Well, so it's like the situation at hand. So if it give me in a scenario of someone micromanaging, if you will, like what would that look like to you?
Hmm. Um, so let's say I am, and I don't want to get too technical. Let's say I'm working on in a factory, right?
Right, right.
And I'm in charge of this line, but my manager is standing over me saying, "Hey, do this. Is that defective?
Hmm.
What's wrong with this one? How can you
Right,
let that one through?" So,
right, right. Thank you. And so it's breathing for a second. Just you don't even have to be all loud. I mean, outward let with it, but it's just I know you want me to do X, Y, and Z. I need a few minutes. Right. It's just you calming you so you can calm the situation in
mm,
that particular situation. Right. And all the micromanaging situations, of course, are going to be different. And so how we respond is going to be different each time. But it's recognizing ultimately for us, how do I want this to look? What kind of outcome am I looking for? And it can happen just like that in a split second. Do I want a good outcome, or do I want one where I'm going to explode, or like recognizing I'm in control of myself? This micromanaging situation is not, it doesn't have to be my issue.
wow, wow, that's powerful. Um, Taking the power back and deciding. Um, So I want to go now another level, right? So I have these goals that I have in mind, but I have some coworkers that are just meddling. They're always in my business. Like, how do I accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish for myself around these coworkers? How do you make that happen?
Well, it has a lot to do with your boundaries, right?
Mhm.
Setting boundaries, healthy boundaries for yourself as it relates to coworkers, and owning stuff. Like we need to own ourselves, who we are. Are we meddling? Are we nosy? Because if I'm a meddling person and I'm nosy, I'm going to invite that too. I'm going to invite that around me. So I become the company that I keep, or who I am, I attract that. So you need to own it first. Find out who you are, and recognizing that when you go to work, you have a job to do. You really don't have time to fraternize. And it would seem like, you know, I go to work, I want to spend time with my, coworkers who happen to maybe be my friends, but there's a time and place.
Mhm, mhm.
And so as we have these new years and new goals, it's deciding this year I'm actually going to go in and set an intention to get my work done. And if I can do that and I can set boundaries around that, then it changes.
Hmm. So setting boundaries and realizing that you might be the problem.
Yeah, you might be your own problem. You might be your own problem.
Oh my goodness, shocking. How did that happen? So
Yeah,
I'm setting boundaries, right, with coworkers because we spend the majority of our time at work
yeah,
with our coworkers, and so we obviously want to build these relationships. I want to know how was your weekend, and
yeah.
um, what did you do, and how's the family, those types of things. Like, what does healthy boundary setting look like?
Right. Well, I think it's recognizing too, like who we are at home, how we've been raised, right? We bring that into the office place. And really, sometimes the office place is just like the classroom. It's
Mhm.
just like a meeting ground for certain situations. So we bring ourselves to work. And so we bring our behaviors to work. We bring our how we acted growing up to work. And again, it's deciding, do I want to be different? Right. And if I want to be different, or I want my situation to be different, I have to do different things.
Hmm.
So if I have a boss, not a boss, but a coworker who's always in my business, one is to recognize, have I been giving up too much of my information?
Hmm.
Right. I need to start setting some boundaries. And it could be that you offend some people, and let them deal with their own offense. It's not your responsibility to deal with them being offended. And it's not even your business. You
Wow.
just have to work on you and the goals that you want to achieve for yourself.
Whew. Okay.
I know it's so
Because, right, we entered this conversation. I figured you were going to tell me how I was going to tell this manager off, how I was going to tell my coworkers what they needed to be doing. And you just told me I got to think about myself,
Mhm.
worry about myself.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, so and I do see, this scrolling in the at the bottom. We do want to hear from you and find out what questions you have for our certified transformational relationship coach, Lori Scott. So please enter your questions in, and we will get to as many of them as we possibly can in this short time. So I feel like we're landing on new year, new goals, new mindset, right? How do we deal with that new mindset, that shift? How are we intentional? How do we decide what recommendations you have for us?
Right. Well, it's deciding what it is that you want, right? What do you want for this new year? What do you want? What kind of goals do you want to achieve at work? And I would say write them down, because you can think about them in your mind, but so many things go on in our mind. We're thinking about going to the gym. We're thinking about what we're going to cook for dinner. We're thinking about this, picking our children up from school. If we write it down, we really take it out of our head and put it on paper, and then it becomes even more intentional, right? And and really asking yourself, is this something I really want to do? Because like when you think about a New Year's resolution, we say it because it's a thing to say.
Mhm.
But truth be told, we don't accomplish that goal, because once we set it in motion, we recognize, dang, that's a lot of work. And it's so much because it's a whole new behavior that we
Mm,
have to set in motion. We're so used to how things have been. Why not just keep it the way it is? Right. So we really have to practice. And that's why I'm saying write it down so you can really look at it. This is how I really want my interactions to go this year. And then we set it in motion by practicing a little bit. Don't give ourselves too much pressure, because we are very judgmental on ourselves. In fact,
mm,
we're the biggest judge, right? So
so
it's like giving ourselves permission to think differently, giving ourselves encouragement, and the confidence that we know we can accomplish what we're setting out to accomplish.
I love that. I give myself permission.
Hmm.
I've heard that very recently, and it definitely stuck with me. So
Right.
we're writing things down. Should we share those goals with our coworkers or with our boss to allow them to help us accomplish them?
Mm-mm, mm-mm. No, 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 don't do that. That's
Not
the reason why, right? So, first of all, we're not confident yet, period, right? So, if we're not confident yet and we start sharing these goals and these ideas with others,
sure.
then it gets watered down, or it sets it up for someone to not necessarily believe in what you believe in, or,
Mm,
and then they're sabotaged there.
wow.
So if you want to sabotage yourself, then by all means, you share it with people. You want to solidify that with yourself first.
Mm,
You want to start getting some gains initially yourself, and and maybe share later or not at all,
mhm,
right? Because you live in your body, right? Like you control your own destiny, not anybody else.
right.
So you don't want to give anybody else ammunition
Mm,
to sabotage you. And sometimes I'm going to say some people do have your best interests at heart, but it's better that we do what we need to do for ourselves first. I would
right,
say,
right.
yeah,
They may have your best interests at heart,
yeah.
maybe,
I
right?
hope I'm getting the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly. So before I open it up to the questions from our viewing audience, what tools and resources would you recommend? I want to make sure that we get those out. Would you recommend to people to help with this new year, new mindset?
Right. I think reading will do a lot of help for us. It will help us a lot. Like reading about what it is that you want to accomplish. Right. So if you want to have a new mindset, it could be that you look up about books that help you with your mindset. So, and again, we live in our own bodies. We know what our issues are. So if we're negative, right, we could be a negative Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I left some recommendations of some books. But the negative Nancy complains, right? So if you know you're a complainer, and we know who we are, right? So if you're a complainer, it's setting an intention to um, really catch yourself when you start to complain. So one of those tools, I would say, one, read. Number two, actually implement some of the things that's being suggested in the things that you read, right? Um, Another tool could be um, deciding that the things that you were doing that were not helpful, like I want this instead of what I was doing. So it's like thinking about what it is that you want
Mm-hmm.
instead of the things that has been happening that has not helped you. Because nobody goes into a grocery store with a list of things they don't want. Really have to think about what it is we do, this, the things that we do want instead of what we don't want.
I love that. Um, and does everybody know that if they complain, if they're negative Nancy, or do we need to tell our coworkers, hey, you're negative Nancy, stop that. Read this book.
Right. No, I think we need to control ourselves. I promise you, if we work on ourselves, we can't help to help other people. Because if we're different, we invite other people to be different too.
Mm.
So we don't have to go around, hey, I'm reading this book, I'm doing this. You know what? You should do it too. Because they're going to see in your behavior, they're going to see how you're different.
Mm.
They're going to take note. And a lot of times, if you see somebody that's different, you're not going to just say it right off. You're just going to watch.
Wow. So we have a great question from Rose Mary Jackson.
Okay.
Managing a group who seems needy at times. Could it be from previous manager encounters of micromanaging? How do I teach them to trust themselves and be more independent?
We could say no.
Hmm.
No, that's a whole sentence. You know. Also asking them what do they think. So if they're needy
Mm.
and they need this, they need the answer to that. What do you think about that? You know, putting it back on them to find out what they would what would they do in that situation, or what do they think about this? Not answering right away,
Hmm.
not being available, because we could be, and I don't know this particular person, but sometimes we can be people pleasers, and we want to help so much, and so then we become a crutch. So the manager could become a crutch, the coworker could become a crutch, and a lot of that stems from how we were raised. A lot of how we were raised come into our workplace. So if mommy is constantly giving us things or dad's giving us things, we grow up with that. Or our spouse is constantly coming to our aid, we anticipate other people are going to do the same thing. So if that's the case, we have to set boundaries for that. And it at first it's going to seem a little harsh because people are not used to you being different. They're going to want you to show up the same way you've always showed up.
Right. And I love what Paulina Johnson put in. She said no, and I believe you have a great solution.
Exactly, Paulina. Yes. No ends. I love it. Yes. Yes.
Right. And just sort of closing that out. So when Rosemary talked about, maybe it was from a previous micromanager, when you talked about deciding, right? So helping them to decide that they no longer want to be in that space, and then helping them with the solution, helping them figure out the solution. Love that.
Right. Yeah. And if you're close, like say there is like a little bit more closeness, you can check in. Hey, what was it like
Mm.
at a job? What was happening? How did you feel? Because we don't speak a lot about how we feel, but our feelings matter,
Mm.
right? And if we tap more into how we feel, we can shift some things. Because if we don't feel good about a scenario, we can check in with ourselves to ask, how do I want to feel about this? So
Mhm.
our feelings matter.
Feelings matter. And Robin co signed that idea of what do you think as a methodology and having it be more of a collaborative effort.
Mhm.
So, maybe that needy person just needs to get validation or something of that sort.
Yeah. Yes, they do. They do, Paula. They need to have their own inner validation, though, but they don't know it. They're thinking they need outside validation, but they need inside validation. They
Mm-hmm,
need
hmm.
to develop confidence, and it's lacking. And it's not to pick on that; it's to, open it up to give more compliments if we notice it. But hopefully, the thing is the person needs to recognize within themselves that they can build their own confidence.
Wow. So A.B. Tucker had a sort of a co-signing comment, if you will, but one of the things that we haven't necessarily talked about was trust.
Mm-hmm.
So it was mentioned that getting that feedback from your teammate encourages them to trust you more. So
Mm-hmm.
trust with the coworkers, um, how critical is that piece?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the alignment, right? So you have to first trust yourself to be able to trust somebody else. And if you don't trust your own comments, if you don't trust your
Mm-hmm.
work, you don't trust, then it's going to be difficult to trust what somebody else is saying. If in your head you're thinking negative things, which is very, very important, we have to really check in with what am I even thinking? Are my thoughts about my work, my productivity? Am I dogging myself out before I give myself a chance? You know, can I learn to trust that I can do good work? And if that's the case, then you can start to trust other people. And in trusting somebody else, are the things that they're doing aligning with what I'm doing? Because if it's not aligning, then you're not going to be in, wanting to trust that person. So it's learning to trust your gut. But that only happens if you learn to trust yourself. Then you can start to trust your gut.
All comes keeps coming back to you. All keeps
Yeah,
coming
yes.
back.
You have an issue wherever you go, there you are.
Right? I can't dodge it. I'm still there. um, and AB said the collaboration makes the dream work. Absolutely. Teamwork makes the dream
Absolutely.
work
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
What other questions do we have for Lori while we have her for this short time left? I feel like when we talked about yourself or truly getting to know yourself,
Hmm.
what resource have you already provided? I know we will provide a list of resources at the end, but if there was one thing that you said, hey, is there a book that helps me really get in tune with who I am so that I can show up better?
Hmm.
What would that be?
I think a good book to start out with is The Four Agreements. And
Mm,
I like that book because it helps you decide to create new agreements with yourself, right? We are so used to saying one thing and doing something else, right? We're not people of our word, and we can become more people of our word. In the book, it speaks about being impeccable, right?
mhm,
But what that is to say, be true to yourself, right? Speak words that you want spoken,
mm.
like, and then don't just talk so much. You know, just really, if what it is that you want to do, to be, put that out there.
Right.
We don't want to put out name calling, gossiping, things like that. That really, really just shows what's going on inside. It's about you actually deciding to be different, right? Another thing that happens, and this is not just in the working area; it's all over. We take things personally. We make
Mhm,
assumptions about things that really don't concern us, but
mm,
we conjecture and we speculate, and then we take it personally. And when we do that, we create issues for ourselves. So that would be a really good book to to really read, to digest, to decide to make some new agreements with ourselves, right? And the last agreement that's in the book is being to do your best. And your best is different every day, right? So if you're not feeling good, you're not going to do as your best as you would another day when you're feeling better. So
Mm.
doing your best is really very, very important.
So that very first one where you talked about being impeccable with your word, like we do need to realize that our words have power. So
Mhm.
what are you creating, with your words, and make sure that you're creating what you want.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so Paulina Johnson, another nugget that was dropped here. One of her mentors gave her the greatest advice, and that is attack issues, not people.
Oh yes, yes, Paulina. Thank you so much. That's that's awesome because it is the problem. The problem is the problem, not the person. Right? The issue is the issue,
Mm,
not the person. And if we focus on that, let's how can we solve this issue together? That is like what somebody else was saying about the collaboration of things. How can
mm.
we come together to work this thing out?
Right, and that's a perfect example of not taking it personally. Right.
Absolutely, because it's not about you. And I do want to leave this with everybody. Nothing anybody says is about you. Nothing anybody does is about you. It's about them. It's very important. It might seem wild to even hear that because, well, somebody just they said my name. It's still not about you. And if we decide not to take things personally, we'll be so much better off.
We would be. So we're almost out of time. Tell me in these last couple minutes, what final pieces of advice would you help us as we go and attempt to navigate our workspace while trying to accomplish our goals?
I would say to remember everything you desire comes from within you, right? It's not outside, it's inside, right? And if you can learn to trust your
Mm,
gut will guide you everywhere you need to go. And be honest with yourself. Like where you're working might not be the best place for you. You know this. So, like, stop hurting yourself by being in a toxic environment. If the
mm,
environment is toxic, do your best to leave that environment and trust that what you desire desires you back.
I love that. What you desire desires you back. And I saw someplace in the chat, to thine own self be true.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Oh, this has been amazing. I thank you all so much for joining us for New Year, New Goals, Same Coworkers. And it was asked, say it one more time, what you desire you back. So
Mhm.
as you go out and you have these goals for yourself, make sure that you understand what it is that you desire with your new year, new goals, and new mindset. Lori, thank you so much for taking some time to pour into our members. We absolutely appreciate it. If you want to get in contact with Lori, you will see her contact information there. This was an incredible session, but we want to hear from you. Your feedback is important to us. So we ask for you to click on the link that you will see there in the chat and give us your feedback. The first 25 people to fill out this survey will be entered in a chance to win an Amazon gift card. So do not delay. Until next time, take good care of yourselves and each other. Have a wonderful day.